Hey, everybody, welcome to Stories of Hope, our first Zoom link, and I hope that you enjoy it. So I thought that I would bring to you some previous guests. But before I introduce them, let me introduce myself. I'm Christine Hotchkiss, and I am Stories of Hope. Yes, I am Stories of Hope because this was my dream in 2015. And this last year, because of you, I got to be more than what I anticipated and expected. So tonight we're actually going to have some Q&A questions from previous guests. And let me give you a brief introduction, and then I'll let them tell you who they are and what their story is. So if you have any questions or you want to reach out to them, they'll provide that information at the end of this recording. My first guest is Ross Gillis. He is a U.S. military. Oh no, I did it. He's also a retired Arizona corrections officer. We have Brock Bevel, Chase the Vase. He talks about addiction. He's a Phoenix, he's Mesa. I'm nervous. It's okay. He is Mesa PD. And then we have Brendan Lyons. He is from the Rural Metro Fire Department. And of course, I want to bring in another interesting person, and they're all interesting, Doug Bliss Kenny. He is going to be observing because he is going to bring this to life. Please help me welcome my guests today. And we'll start out with a little introduction, starting from Brock Bevel with Chase the Vase. It's all yours, Brock.
Hey, Christine, thank you for letting me be here. I'm super excited to be on this panel. Hopefully I can bring some knowledge. My past is I'm actually a retired Mesa police officer, worked undercover, worked as a detective for some time. And basically what happened in my story was I enjoyed my career. I identified myself as a police officer until the moment that I was run over on duty and I medically retired. And so I know I just kind of gave it in a nutshell, but basically I was hit by a vehicle. Due to my injuries, they medically retired me, and they kind of felt like they took my identity away. I'm sure Ross kind of understands this, and Brendan, being actively, you have your team, right? And you go from having this amazing team to not having that team. And so for me, that depression kind of took over, that sadness, that loss of unity. And so because I already had a propensity for this addiction from early on in my life, I started to kind of self-medicate with my opioids from my doctor. And I still remember vividly my doctor telling me on one of my early surgeries, said, "Hey, because you're a police officer, you're never going to get hooked on these things." And I remember that ringing a bell. I see Brendan kind of shaking his head like, what? Like, what doctor would ever tell you that? But I guess he thought I had seen it in the streets enough that it wouldn't affect me. But unfortunately, for the next 10 years of my life, it took absolute physical control. And we talk about addiction as a cunning, baffling, powerful disease. And that's pretty much what happened. And so it took me a long time, 10 years. I went through the detox process from opioids. And now I have 11 years of sobriety. And I run a business called Chase. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. So I run a business called Chase the Vase. And what that is that's kind of, I meet police officers, first responders, veterans in the middle. You know, a lot of times it's hard for them to, if they're in active addiction or they're in active PTSD, to take time away from work, to leave for 30 days to go get recovery. And so what I do is I meet them in the middle. I do therapy with them for 30 days. I run a challenge with them, and I help them kind of just restructure who they are temporarily, help them get off the opioids, help them get off the alcohol for 30 days. And that's just kind of the pivot point in their life that they needed to catapult them to the next stage of their life. So basically that's who I am. Super honored to be on this panel. I thank you guys for being here, and hopefully we get some good questions tonight.
Love that.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ross.
Brock.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Brock. Brendan Lyons, it's all yours.
Well, first of all, can I do an audio check? Can you guys hear me okay on this headpiece?
We can hear
Loud
you.
and clear.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Christine, thank you so very much for having me. I'm privileged to be joining Ross and Brock tonight and hearing their incredible stories. Also, former firefighter, as you cited, for Rural Metro Fire Department back in 2013. Prior to that, on the job, I often responded to the tragic consequences of distracted driving. Brock, your story, I'm sure you're going to touch on it a lot more, but closely resonates to my heart. But on the job, I often respond to the tragic consequence of distracted driving. So often that it compelled me to launch a nonprofit in 2012 through an organization called Look, Save a Life that promotes the safety and awareness of all who utilize our public roads. In a sad twist of irony, a year later, I went out for a bike ride with my girlfriend on the morning of her birthday. And a motorist at 45 miles an hour looked down to see who was calling, swerved into the bike lane and struck us both from behind. I sustained 6 fractured vertebrae, a fractured pelvis. I bit off half of my tongue and was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury. This took me away from my career as a firefighter and laid up in a hospital bed. There was 2 former state lawmakers, one Republican representative in Arizona and one a Democrat senator, and we held a bipartisan press conference discussing ways in which to mitigate distracted driving. The state's failure to act in 2013, 14, and 15 threw me into fighting for tougher laws and ordinances around our state, and I helped 15 jurisdictions in passing hands-free distracted driving ordinances. And then finally, in 2019, in a bipartisan effort, Governor Doug Ducey signed Arizona's hands-free distracted driving law that now finally takes effect that can be citable starting January 1st, 2021. That culmination of my life experiences and championing for these issues compelled me to throw my hat in the ring, and I was a candidate for the Arizona legislature in this last November. And unfortunately, it was not successful, but it taught me a lot about building relationships. It taught me about humanizing these crashes, because oftentimes we hear about the statistics, but we don't hear about the stories. Brock, like your story, and there's so many stories around my incident that I think I'll take up way too much time. But there's a story of forgiveness and that accompanies mine that maybe we can touch on later. But with that, I pass the buck to Ross.
You got it, Ross. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you so much. My name is Ross Gillis, and I was in the Arizona Department of Corrections prison system for 23 years, and I was a very stellar career. I really recommended it to a lot of people. As most of you others that had worked in law enforcement or in public service, you certainly know. Yes, absolutely. There's a huge team there. And a camaraderie that really many people outside of those first responder and public service jobs just don't really grasp. But I had found that my experiences in prison certainly helped me to be helped me to center myself a lot, because you're always surrounded by, I'm sure that Brock can say that, when most police officers, and well, usually nobody wants to see you in the rearview mirror unless you're there, men help them out. But most of the time you get the worst men of society just always throwing arrows at you. And even firefighters, such as yourself there, Brendan, it's just one of those things that they're always glad to see you and wonderful to help. But sometimes, like they think, oh, why are you trying to pick me up, man? I'm hurt. Don't you know that? And that kind of thing. And so there's positive and negativity and all the facets of the jobs. But I found myself about the last year of my career, my management had changed, and I had a really successful career, and I'd gone through a lot of different supervisors. I had changed yards, and really inmates in prison really aren't the issue as much as it is fellow staff at times. Sometimes you just get staff that are, super cops. They want to just go in there and they want to kickstart inmates on the previous shift. And then you have to roll into the house for yours, and they're all riled up, and you have to, put the flames out, so to speak. And, but then there are others that just sort of check out. They're there for a job. That's it. And, but management often are the ones that are tasked with really trying to control all that. And some people get promoted that really shouldn't be. I'm sure that both of you have had instances of that as well. But I had one that was this manager just was one of those ambush types. They save up things that you did wrong for a long time, and then all of a sudden just call you in the office, and let you have it. And this is a monologue. I talk, you listen, kind of thing. And I come from a broken home, and so control, and I've never really been in any control in my life. I really had a good time in prison. I was able to do things there, but that manager just stripped me of any real ability to do anything. And I had already passed my 20-year mark, so I really could have pulled the trigger at any time, to retire. And I managed to make it 23 years in that job. I wanted 25, but my last year, about the fall of 2017, I was just not having anything in life. A lot of things were going wrong. I didn't have any substance issues, thankfully, but mentally I was just, checking out. And I had pretty much reached a point where I was going to end my own life. I knew exactly how I was going to do it. I knew where. I had the area picked out. I had the method of doing it down so well that I would have done it and they would have not found the weapon. Police would have rolled up. It would have been a murder because there would have been no weapon there. It was that well that thought out. And it reached a point for me that I just had to rely on a few things as I thought about this. And my particular podcast had the 3 F's. I mean, it's certainly not what you think, but it's for me, it was definitely family, friends, and faith. That was my 3 F's that helped me get through that, because through those 3 F's, I was able to compartmentalize what my problems were. And I had just, talked to all different people in there, and it really helped me kind of get out of that fire, of that place in my head that there is a better way. There's solutions for things for problems that you may not think you have. And it certainly gave me direction that I hadn't really thought of before. So that just brought me to where I am here. And I'm certainly thankful for that time.
Incredible
Wow.
story, Ross. Wow.
Each of you have some great stories, men of public service. Society puts you guys on these pedestals that your fire, your police, your corrections, one has a negative, or they all have a negative, depending on who you're talking to, like you said. But you guys are living like everybody else, trying to live your lives, do your jobs, and then you have something happen to you. And hearing all 3 of you, your lives were definitely changed. I learned something from each of you guys that I don't put anyone on a pedestal anymore. You're doing a job to protect other people, and there are going to be those people, like you said, that are not going to appreciate what you're doing, and they don't realize that inside, you've already mentioned, all of you, you've got something going on that you're like, I just want to just do this, or I just want to help. Ross, you were more about higher ups making a stress on you, and I'm really surprised that you said that it wasn't the inmates, but it was actually your surrounding coworkers. That floors me, because I thought, as I learned, that police and fire have a brotherhood, but I'm also hearing from other people that that's not always the case either. I have a question for Brock. So Chase the Vase is something just recent, right?
It actually came from when I was 8 years old. It's a story that comes from a World War I. It's a story about William Peck, and it's called The Go-Getter. Maybe Brandon or Ross have heard of this story. It's an older one, but my first business up here in Arizona was called the Blue Vase, and this is kind of continuous with that. The Blue Vase was an organization I ran with that helped individuals recover. So it was an intensive outpatient treatment. Chase the Vase is more of a one-on-one team environment, and where we work with men and women in law enforcement as first responders. So it's a little different. I appreciate the name. I'm glad people ask me what it means, but basically our vase is the next thing we're chasing. So for me, at one point in time, my vase, my it was kind of like my reward. I wanted sobriety. Now that I have it, I got to go find something else. And every day I got to be growing and reaching for something new.
Understood. Ross, what do you do for a career now? I know what it is, but let everyone else know, because it's quite the opposite that you think.
Absolutely. About Valentine's, right around February of 2018, my wife and I were having dinner, and she has been a kindergarten teacher at a low income neighborhood school for about 15 years. And so she said on a whim, hey, my school is hiring. I know, you've been looking to get out of that job, and, maybe this is something you could look forward to. And I said, you know what the heck, man, I'll do it. So I applied, and in a very rare circumstance, I was working the job about 5 weeks after application, like literally application to hiring. I was in school, and originally I went on as a registration technician in the office, essentially, doing tardies, and all that. And then that job worked out well, but they were going to eliminate it. So I stayed in the school. Her and I work together, and I now work with middle school self-contained autistic kids. And it is the best career change I could have ever done, because I've learned there is just no more pure love than those kids give, because, if you're somebody that they can trust, that you can help them, that's the best compliment I could ever receive.
That is amazing. And Brendan, you just recently did something to make a difference in your community. Tell us a little bit about that.
I've done a handful of things. Forgive me. Which one are you citing?
The running that you were talking about for the 2020 year.
Yeah, so that was an extraordinary experience. I don't care which side of the aisle you fall on. I think anybody who makes themselves vulnerable enough to throw themselves into public office, I certainly commend them. And it all stemmed from trying to get a piece of legislation passed over a course of numerous years. But Ross, hearing your story, Brock, hearing your story, I can't help but think of my own personal mantra and the title of my next book, which is Aspire to Inspire Before You Expire. And each one of us have faced some sort of adversity throughout life. And I also am recollected by a quote by Walter Anderson, who said, "Bad things do happen. How you respond to them defines your character and the quality of your life. You can choose to sit in perpetual sadness, immobilized by the gravity of your loss, or you can choose to rise above, appreciate, and treasure the most precious gift that you have, life itself." And once I heard that, instantly I stopped feeling sorry for myself and said, you know what, let's go try to make this world a better place, try to mitigate these collisions so that they don't happen to others. But I mean, what's compelling is that we all have a story, right? And it's how we bounce back from these stories that really define us. I mean, there's countless people we hear about every single day that potentially play the role as a victim and feel like the world owes them something. Well, you two individuals, and Christine, yourself as well, really step up and try to make this world a better place. So for those things, I say thank you.
I thank you all for being my guests. I am being told by my moderator, Dawn, who has also been someone as a guest of mine, that we need to wrap it up. So with that being said, you gentlemen already know my final question. But before I do, I want to put out there, do each of you want to give any contact information that you should be able to be contacted with the limited time we have? So I'll start with you, Brendan.
Sure. Brendan Lyons, BrendanLyons. I'm the executive director of Look, Save a Life, and my phone number is 520-248-9874. And you can email me at brendanlyons.az@gmail.com.
Thank you. Brock Bevel.
Yes, I'm the owner of Chase the Vase. You can find me at chasethevase.com or chasethevasechallenge.com. My email is chasingthevase@gmail.com. Really easy to find me. 480-826-3833. Call me if you need help.
Perfect. Thank you. Ross, do you have any contact information should anyone want to reach out to you? And if you don't, that's fine too.
No, absolutely. Ross, I'm just, some guy. I don't have a foundation or, organization or anything.
Okay.
But I do have an email. It's Trekker, as in Star Trek, Trekker1801 @gmail.com. And I do have a number, 520-790-4382. If anybody wants to reach out and talk, I am absolutely available.
Wonderful. And I can't leave without asking my final question. So in less than a minute, if you can, we'll start with Ross. What message would you like to leave for everyone about your journey.
I know on your podcast, I talked about never giving up. And I've learned over the years that find the one thing in your life that is the main thing, and keep the main thing the main thing. Just don't give up hope for what you want to accomplish, and just keep on going.
Perfect. Brock.
Ooh, I don't know if I could top Ross's. Ross, that sounded good, man. You know what I've realized after probably a lot like Brendan feels, man, our days are numbered, right? We don't have a lot of opportunities. So my thing is use every moment, every day, the best you can. There's so much hate out there. And my invitation is to find a reason to love, find a reason to share your strength and hope with other people. And with that, I'm passing to Brendan.
The baton has been passed.
So two things. One is a little plug on behalf of the organization, and that is to remember that a moment's distraction is a lifetime of regret. Get off your phone while driving. And two, which I already cited, was please aspire to inspire before you expire.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen, for being my guests once again. But this way, we did it a little bit different. I felt that with all of you having a service, you also had a story that people need to see. You're just as human as the rest of us who are doing what we do in our lives. And my story is tragedy, but we'll save that for another time. And with that being said, I want to let everyone know that everyone, as it's been stated, has a story. And yes, you can help, heal, inspire, educate. And my one word is to give hope, which is what I've heard today, along with all the other shows I've heard. So with that being said, should you have a story you want to share, know someone who has a story that needs to be heard, or you have an organization making a difference in your community, please email me to the address of stories@christinehotchkiss.com. And I want to thank Dawn Fowler. She will be in a future show of ours, along with two other guests that will go with the same theme, because she's got quite the journey going on. So, but we'll save that for another time. Until next time, everyone, I wish you well, and you take care.